This was the decade that shattered the mold, the 1960s in America. 10 years of pure, unadulterated whiplash. One moment, you're watching a man walk on the moon. The next, you're watching your own cities burn on the evening news. It was a sensory overload of hope and sheer terror, all broadcast in living color for the very first time. It was the decade that taught America how to dream big, and then showed it just how painfully those dreams could shatter. It all began with a young face. 1961, John F. Kennedy became the youngest elected president in U.S. history. He was only 43. And he didn't just govern, he inspired. His inaugural address wasn't a list of policies, it was a call to action. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. He created the Peace Corps, he challenged the USSR in space. But this wasn't just an arms race, it was a battle for the human mind, and then he said those words in 1962, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade, not because it is easy, but because it is hard." The whole country looked up at the sky. Astronaut John Glenn became a national hero, orbiting the Earth. America was confident, it was future-oriented, but that ascent was steep and short. November 22nd, 1963, Dallas. A warm day. The presidential motorcade on Elm Street. Shots. And then, chaos. For the first time in history, an entire nation witnessed a tragedy unfold on live television. For 3 days, the country was glued to its TV screens. The funeral, the riderless horse. Little John saluting. The assassination of JFK wasn't just the death of a leader. It was the first national trauma experienced collectively through the screen. It was the end of innocence. And while one America mourned its president, another America was fighting its own war, a war for basic human dignity. Imagine a country where you couldn't sit at the front of a bus, couldn't eat at the same lunch counter as a white person, couldn't go to the same school. This was the everyday reality for millions of black Americans. But in the 60s, that changed. It changed because ordinary people said enough. They sat down at whites-only lunch counters and refused to move until they were arrested. They rode buses across the South testing federal desegregation laws. They were met with clubs and fire. They were called the Freedom Riders. And then there was Birmingham, Alabama, 1963. Police, under the orders of Commissioner Eugene Bull Connor, set dogs on demonstrators and used fire hoses so powerful they stripped the bark off trees. And it was all caught on camera. The whole world saw that violence, and it was shocking. The culmination came in August 1963, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. 250,000 people at the Lincoln Memorial. And then, a Baptist preacher from Atlanta, Martin Luther King Jr., delivered his most famous sermon. I say to you today, my friends, that even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. That moment became a moral compass for the entire nation. The result? The Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed segregation in public places. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, which finally guaranteed black Americans the right to vote. But the violence didn't stop. The assassination of activist Malcolm X in 1965. And then the shot in Memphis in 1968 that killed Martin Luther King Jr. himself. The fight for rights had become a fight for survival. And against this backdrop of internal struggle, America was fighting a brutal, protracted war thousands of miles from home. Vietnam. It started as mere military aid to South Vietnam against the communist North. But under President Lyndon B. Johnson, it escalated into a full-scale conflict. By 1968, there were over 500,000 American soldiers in Vietnam. But this war was different. It was the first televised war. Every evening during dinner, American families would turn on the TV and see reports from the front lines. Real footage, explosions, the wounded, the dead. They saw the village of My Lai being wiped off the map. They saw the photo of a young girl burned by napalm running down a road. And they heard their government telling them America was winning. This gap between the official truth and the televised reality tore the country apart from the inside. College campuses became epicenters of protest. Students burned their draft cards. They chanted, "Hey, hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today?" The slogan of a generation, make love, not war. In 1968, the protests peaked. The assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. sparked riots in over 100 cities. And then, at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, police brutally beat protesters and journalists, all of it broadcast live. America saw its own police force turning violence on its own citizens. Trust in authority was shattered forever. From this cauldron of protest and disillusionment, an entirely new phenomenon was born, the counterculture. Young people rejected their parents' values, conformity, materialism, the American dream of a house with a white picket fence. They sought new ways of being. Long hair on men became not just a style, but a political statement. Music became the voice of protest. Bob Dylan sang, "The times they are a-changin'." The Beatles evolved from "I Want to Hold Your Hand" to the psychedelic "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds." The hippie emerged. Their philosophy, peace, love, and freedom. They experimented with sex, spirituality, and psychedelic drugs like LSD. They talked about expanding your consciousness. And the culmination of this movement, its Woodstock, was, Woodstock, 1969, a farm in New York State. The organizers expected 50,000 people. Nearly 500,000 showed up. 3 days in the pouring rain, in the mud, with a lack of food and water. But it didn't matter. The music of Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, The Who filled the air. This wasn't just a concert, it was a utopian commune, living proof that their ideals of peace and community could actually work. It was the peak of the counterculture, its brightest and its final breath. And against all of this, the wars, the protests, the social upheaval, America did something that still feels like a miracle. It landed men on the moon. The space race was a front of the Cold War. The USSR was ahead for so long. First satellite, first living creature in space, first man, Yuri Gagarin. America was playing catch-up, but the Apollo program became a national project. Thousands of scientists, engineers, and technicians worked on it. On July 16, 1969, the giant Saturn V rocket launched from Cape Canaveral. On board, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins. 4 days of travel, and then Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Millions of people around the world held their breath. A grainy black and white image. A man in a bulky spacesuit descends a ladder. He takes one small step and speaks into history. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. In that moment, however brief, all the strife, all the wars, all the contradictions were forgotten. Humanity had stepped out of its cradle. It was an absolute triumph, proof that America could do anything it set its will and resources to. So what was the legacy of these insane, tragic, brilliant 10 years? It was a decade of extremes. On one side, the moon, Woodstock, the I Have a Dream speech. On the other, Vietnam, the assassinations of Kennedy and King, racial hatred. But it was precisely this cocktail of hope and despair that created the modern world. The 60s gave us the environmental movement, the women's rights movement, a new understanding of free speech. They forever changed fashion, music, cinema. They taught us to question authority and demand answers from it. They showed the power of mass, nonviolent protest, and they also showed just how fragile a society can be. The political divisions, the culture wars, the debates about America's role in the world, all of it has its roots in the 1960s. This was the time when the future, as we know it, was just beginning. A time when anything seemed possible, both the good and the bad. And we are still living in the shadow and the light of that unfinished decade.